Okay, so I watched two of the Tim's videos. The one we watched in class was the gentleman teaching in America about graphing, and the second one I watched was a lady that taught in Australia, and she was teaching about congruent triangles. The first one I'm going to talk about is the one that we watched in class about the gentleman from America. First thing I'd like to say is I really did enjoy the task that he had students doing. It was an excellent worksheet, and I thought it was a great way to teach his students. However, I did think there was a lot of problems with the way that he did do the worksheet. First of all, he made it a lot of work for himself. If I were him, he put students in groups. Great move. He wanted the other students so that they could help each other and teach each other how to do the steps. Excellent idea, but he needed to share that point with his students because they didn't understand that, and he needed to make that clear before he started them on their task. The second thing I would have done is given them an example on the board where I did the example. The students were using two methods. The first one was slope intercept form to graph the line. The second one was they were using tables to help plot their line. Both excellent things to do. I would have done an example of both on the board. The other thing I would have done, though, is I would have done a we do part on problem number one of their worksheet. I would have put number one up on the board. I would have drawn questions from the class that helped me solve them and help me make sure that they're understanding and getting what they need to do. A couple reasons I would do number one from the worksheet. The first reason is it gives students a little bit of confidence. They already have one problem done on their worksheet. The second reason is once they have it on their worksheet, they're going to be more willing to write it down since they know they'll be turning that in for points. And the last reason I would do that is because when they write it down and do it on the worksheet, they have an excellent example already written down on the worksheet that they can refer back to when they have other problems. It's on their worksheet, and you know they're going to have that one written down so they can refer back to it. This would have saved the gentleman a lot of help, or a lot of time going around to each group and having to clarify different things. If he would have just stated out better instructions, I feel like he could have saved himself a lot of time. I felt like he knew they were going to be pressed for time, so he just wanted to get the students going on their work, which is kind of tough. I think he could have saved himself a lot of time and work if he would have spent a little bit extra time in giving them more instruction. On the flip side, over in Australia, the gal also did an excellent project where she had students working in groups also, and working on congruent triangles. She opened up the class by just you know doing a review of congruent triangles. She asked students what it was, and they defined it out loud as class. Then she gave a 10-question kind of oral quiz, I guess, of congruent triangles. She put a picture up on the board and then asked them 10 quick questions, which they wrote it down. They were all just kind of review type questions. They weren't very deep digging in their understanding, but just quick to kind of get the students thinking about congruent triangles and get their mind going. The only thing I had that I didn't really like about that is she asked one student to read off all 10 answers. So if it were me, I would have kind of pulled from different people around the room and try to get a better understanding of where the students were at, rather than just having one student read off all the answers. And she did a good job. The student did. She got 9 out of the 10 right. So she only addressed the one problem that the student had. The other four, they just moved on, which it's not necessarily clear that all the students had those ideas down and knew what they were doing there. One thing I did note is that she went the whole lesson teaching, and then at the very end, she met with a student who was absent from the day before to make sure she was understanding what they were doing. If it were me, I would have assigned the topic that they were doing or the worksheet that they were doing that way. And then after I got the students going, I would have went and met with that student who was absent the day before and kind of got her going and caught up and then she wouldn't be so far behind rather than waiting till the end when the student essentially missed 2 days because she didn't really understand the material. But I believe she just forgot about that student had been absent, which happened. She's had a busy day. One thing she did great is she did do a lot of instructions, and the students knew exactly what they were to do on their worksheet, which was the flip of what the gentleman in the United States did. She did an excellent job in her instructions of how they were going to do the worksheet, which saved her a lot of work going around group to group. They knew what they were doing, and she just could check in and give out a little bit of help there, here and there. She didn't need to put in as much work as a gentleman in the United States. So what I basically took out of both these videos is it is very important to take a little bit of extra time and be very clear with our instructions and make sure students understand before we turn them loose on their own. This will save us time as teachers and also a lot of work as a teacher.